welcome to Facebook Horizon.
So I was invited to Facebook's invite-only beta for Horizon. Honestly, I was pretty hyped because I heard it's supposed to be somewhere between like Rec Room and VRChat, but it has the backing of a big company, and I figured a sort of metaverse-style game with big company backing could turn out to be pretty good. I'm personally more of a fan than Rec Room than I am VRChat, but I think both of them have their pros and cons, and I was going in with those comparisons in mind. I think that Rec Room nails the game aspect of the game, and that they have their own custom games that they made, and even though they're not using the in-game tools provided, they still give these really fun experiences. And I think their scripting tools are, they're just okay, but they are definitely improving them a lot. Although Rec Room is just swamped by a younger fan base, microtransactions, it has limits on a lot of stuff from players into the room to the amount of things you can put, like objects and physical stuff inside a room. I think VR chat's a lot freer in those regards, like in a literal no microtransaction sense, but also in like you can have bigger, more wild spaces, objects, avatars, but with the freedom to be able to use kind of any model you stumble across. You also lose the ease of access of being able to use the in-game tools to build and create like Rec Room has. VR chat also generally has a more mature user base, which makes playing stuff within VR chat a more pleasant experience. So in general, my expectations for Horizon would be to have a game that has more of the freedom and power of VR chat, but with like the ease of use and polish of Rec Room.
Horizon is a social experience, a place for us to connect, hang out, explore, play, and create together. Whoever you are and whatever you're into, it's people like you who make Horizon great. So, get ready to inspire and be inspired. The first step is to create your avatar. This is how other people will see you.
So, first of all, you might notice a bit of clicking in the background sound, and I literally cannot tell you why that's happening. I'm using the desktop version of Horizon because I wanted the power of a desktop to give it as much of a fair shake as possible. I generally play both Rec Room and VRChat on my desktop, even though I own a Quest, and so I wanted to do the same thing. That way I could compare fairly. You start out on a tiny little island and make a character, but it actually happens to be the same character creation that is used by the updated Oculus venues, and since I had already created one so I could watch Facebook Connect, I was actually able to just jump right in. However, there's sort of immediately a problem. You might notice that my jacket is just pure black, and the shirt under it is also pure black, and that's not a lack of creativity. For some reason, you get one color for the whole of whatever top you're wearing. And the rendering for the clothes is kind of like bizarre, making everything sort of blend into itself, which you might find is a running theme when it comes to like making your own world. Hair colors are also only natural hair colors, which kind of seems insane to me. I can dye my hair blue and green in real life, but all you're giving me is auburn, brown, light brown, dark brown, black. Like, it almost feels like they both want to give you creativity, but only their certain prescribed form of creativity. It just feels bad. Once you're done with creating your character, the tutorial basically tells you not to be an asshole, and then you can teleport off to the plaza. They use the same method that VRChat and Oculus Homes use, which is that you have this glowing portal and then a flat JPEG of the location you're going to. Personal preference, I really don't like that. Either make it like a small 3D environment so it kind of looks like it's an actual portal. Even with the loading screen, I think that would just be much more immersive and satisfying. Or just make it like an opaque door like Rec Room has. You could even have like multiple door styles. The JPEG thing just feels really low quality. So you end up on the plaza, which is a generous way of referring to this tiny platform with about 6 or 7 doors on it. You can explore the island if you want, but it's really nothing special. It takes you about 30 seconds to look at everything there. It's kind of underwhelming. Mainly it's just a default space for people to congregate in, but I honestly can't believe that this space is all that's there. VRChat just has each person starting in their own room and doesn't really have like a default space, which I think is a valid way to go about it. And Rec Room actually has both a dorm room for you personally that you spawn in and can customize, And then there is an actual Rec Room of Rec Room. Now, while I never actually go to the Rec Room of Rec Room due to it just attracting children, I think it's a well-made place. There's basketball, a food stand, clothing options and stuff like that. There's doors that allow you to more immersively make your way to the Rec Room made experiences. It's fun to hang out in, but in Horizon, you just end up with this empty platform with a few doors, a minigame, and a piano you can stand on. And it's kind of sad. In any case, I decided to make my way to Shape Labs, which is one of the Facebook designed worlds, but I had accidentally stepped backwards into a portal, got sent back to the plaza again, and then when I tried to go back to Shape Labs, the game bugged out and soft locked me onto the plaza, and the world wouldn't load, and the players wouldn't load, and I just had to restart everything. After the restart, I actually noticed that you have control over your facial expression, and I think there's some really neat stuff there. If you hold up 2 thumbs, you get this massive grin, and if you only hold up 1 thumb, you get a smile with teeth. And then if you're going from holding a thumb up to not holding your thumb up, you get this just like regular kind of smile. And then if you do, it's the same thing, where if you have 2 thumbs down and then go 1 thumb down and no thumbs down, you know, I think stuff like this is really cool. Facial expressions in the real world are really useful for communication. I think it's nice to have a way to sort of affect how you look. I know in Rec Room you have a system where it sort of gives you a face relevant to the thing you're doing, but you don't have control over it. It's more of a passive control. It just kind of determines what it thinks would be best for the situation. And VR chat actually allows you to control your avatar, but most people use the controls for things like sounds and effects and stuff like that, not for controlling the face of their avatar. So stuff like this is really cool. You know, +1 to Facebook. So, I made my way back in, I hopped into a world, which I thought was a Facebook-made world, but wasn't, and it was called The Platform, which, you might guess, is a platform. And, yep, you just kind of stand on it. It moves along, and you just stand and try not to get knocked off. It's like a party game meant for 4 people. It was incredibly easy, except for the black wall against the black skybox and a black platform that I couldn't see that swept me off my feet, so yeah, didn't look amazing. Great, moving on. After that, I moved to a game which actually was made by Facebook called Blinkball. It looked pretty good, which was encouraging. Basically, you would teleport around with a grappling hook and throw dodgeballs at robots or other players. However, when I grabbed onto the gun, it sort of floated off my hand, which was this incredibly off-putting feeling, and basically made it feel as the game was like throwaway. You know, if the game doesn't sit in my hand, I wouldn't be accurate, and if I couldn't be accurate, then like why would I want to put serious effort into the game? It just made the game feel, you know, trash. As well, the gun had this problem that a lot of items in VR chat have, which I like to call sticky air syndrome. And basically, when you let go of something, it just stays there. There's no physics to the object, it doesn't fall, but it's not zero gravity either, so it doesn't float in the air, it's just stuck. And it's honestly just this incredibly off-putting feeling, like they had forgotten to apply gravity or any sorts of physics to it. And actually, it turns out a lot of stuff in the game suffers from this, which is incredibly annoying. I know why they do this. If it's anything like Rec Room, there is a cost to each object you spawn in, and objects that have gravity cost more to the, to the total than objects that don't. And so, if you're gonna have these objects, it would just be easier to not give them gravity, and then you wouldn't have to. You'd be able to basically put more detail into other things. I understand that, but I think the items you are interacting with, like physically touching, the ones you're holding, it just feels bad when you let go and then they just hang there in midair. Yeah, maybe it's just a personal thing, but it really feels bad. So, the game starts up, and throwing the dodgeballs, pros and cons. I like the homing mechanic, but also the dodgeballs aren't really obeying physics correctly, which makes like throwing them a very awful experience. They have this weird floaty feeling. They just don't feel like they have weight. And also, the gun shoots a hook, but you're not grappling over to stuff, which was what I was excited for. Instead, you just sort of spawn a platform, and then you slowly teleport over to it. It's actually really shit. Anyways, it's not my favorite thing, it's not the worst, but this was made by Facebook, right? So if that's what you're using to show off the platform, I can't say it inspires me with confidence. Moving on, I go to another Facebook created world, which is basically Capture the Hill laser tag. But the lasers are actually balls with gravity, which is like, if you're gonna add gravity, why did you give the lasers gravity? Are you serious? It is a beam of light. Just make it go in a straight line. Also, weirdly, every time you die, you go all the way back to the spawn room. Not like the spawn room for your team, but where you spawn into the map. Then you need to teleport to your team's spawn room, and then you spawn into the game itself. Really odd choice. Was it intentional? Who knows? Anyways, I kicked this dude's butt, mostly because he struggled to, like, understand the game immediately. There were 6 guns, so up to 3 players on each team, and this was the second time I noticed the intimacy of the game. We had 4 players on the last map, 4 players on the platform, 6 players here. Those aren't bad per se, but it seems odd that you couldn't just, like, spawn in however many guns for however many people were playing. Later, I would actually find out that there's kind of a low cap on how many people can be in a room, so that kind of sucks. One of the things I like doing in metaverses like this is going to VR clubs. Rec Room, for all the children it has, actually has some really good clubs. And has this sub-room and instancing system, as well as higher caps that allow you to have, like, quite a few people in a club at any one time. I was hoping at minimum you could have like 16 people in a room together. Whatever. Anyways, I tried another world made by some person with floaty item syndrome. It was very unsatisfying. I could complain about a lot of stuff here, but I'm not gonna bother because it wasn't made by Facebook. It was just made by a user. Next was a puzzle game room thing, puzzle adventure, made by Facebook. It had a very neat setup. Although I thought the item attachment system looked really janky, I did find it kind of fun though. It was kind of like laser tag or blink ball, like a solid 6, well, low 6 maybe. But it's supposed to be the cream of the crop, right? This is the stuff that Facebook is like, look at what we made. We know our tool set very well, and this is like what you could accomplish if you want to put the effort in, and that's all they have is like a low 6. And eventually, before I could even finish the puzzle, the game had lagged, but I kept moving, and so when it stopped lagging, I had teleported through a door and was stuck in a locked room. So that was kind of bullshit. But yeah, it was at this point I just kind of needed to see what creation options there were. Good creation systems really would make or break a game like this, and from what I could tell, I was pretty sure everything in the game was made with the in-game creation tools, for better or for worse. First thing I noticed, no tutorial system. Nothing to walk me through the options of what I can make and how to make things. Nothing. Rec Room doesn't have anything in-game, but they actually do have an extensive set of YouTube videos, and even make updated versions if their info is slightly out of date. And VRChat has a whole set of documentation on how to use their SDK as well. But for Horizon, I didn't see anything, and I wasn't able to find anything after doing a cursory Google search, so even still, at first I was kind of excited. I really liked the options on growing and shrinking, manipulating items, and so on. I found the option for properties on things and messed with some shapes and paints and stuff, and as I continued to go through, I started to notice problems. The most stark one being that there are 4 materials in the game. You have plain with slight reflectivity, plain but really shiny, and literally just emissive. Like, you can tweak the percentage of how much each material is that material, so it's kind of like a blend between the material and the plain option. So really you only have 3 options. And there's a okay number of shapes, but that kind of explains why everything I was looking at was so sterile. There's just no materials. And I understand that it's in beta, but if I had to guess, this is probably what they're launching with, and it's not enough. Like, if you want full customizability, allow people to just make their own materials by tweaking, like, general material properties. Color, metallic, specular, roughness, emissive, opacity, any sorts of normals. Or at the very least, go the Rec Room route with like pre-made materials and just do like 6 or 10 preset materials that you can just change the colors of. You have gizmos, but most of them are kind of underwhelming. Like the particle effects. At first I thought they looked neat, and then I found out that you could only have like 7 preset particles, and you can't change them in any way. You can't change the color, you can't change the frequency, nothing. They're just, that's what they are. The environment gizmo allows you to change between 6 skyboxes, but I can't change the position of the sun or the moon. I can't add clouds or mountains or anything. It's just boring and flat and sterile and unfinished. And lastly, we have the scripting options. Is there a lot there? Yeah, it seems so. And they're using a sort of Scratch-like scripting system, which is a pretty okay option in VR. Although I do find node-based systems where you're like physically dragging, you know, cables between options just makes more sense in VR. It's more tactile. That being said, how does any of it work? I don't like to pretend I'm this amazing coder or anything like that, but I've used enough languages and played around in enough creation systems, I generally have a feel for what I need to do the things that I want to do. However, with this, I have no idea. Every object has a reference plug, but I can't seem to plug it into anything. I can't find how to get the context for any event that's triggered. Like, if I have a trigger volume that triggers on players, how do I get the player? There just doesn't seem to be an option for it. And that's, I don't know, that just seems kind of insane. It's at times like this that I would look it up to see what I was doing wrong or what I was missing. But since it's in beta, I can't do any of that. So in the meantime, I guess I just have to wait for it to come out or for Facebook to release some documentation or something. Ultimately, I don't think that's going to solve anything. I really feel like what this game needs is more work, more materials, more Facebook-created worlds to show off what can be done, just a better default spawn than the Plaza, higher player caps. I understand why the limitations exist. They're building for a mobile-first platform. They're building for the Quest. But right now, even Quest Rec Room is better than what Facebook's providing. Quest VR Chat is better than what Facebook is providing. And Facebook is this huge company. They shouldn't be making something that is like only a little better than what's currently being offered. They should have to do what they did with the Quest 2. Make a product that is just so much better than every other product that you just have to be like super contrarian not to get it. Like the Quest 2 is so cheap and has such solid specs that even people who hate Facebook are gonna get it anyways because it's just the best thing on the market. They need to do the same thing with Horizon if they want it to succeed. And right now, they don't have that. 4 out of 10. Come see me after class.